with a new personality, they're thinking, I found somebody dumb enough to accept me in my worst form. I'm never letting this person go. So they end up coming back to you, not out of love, but purely because they don't feel like anybody else would accept their unacceptable behavior. And so they come back out of that. And we stupidly think because they love us so much, but really it's because they found somebody dumb enough to accept their unacceptable behavior.
Have you been cheated on before?
I haven't, which is so strange considering my radar and my anxiety towards it. You would think I've been cheated on loads. I actually have never experienced it. Not that I know of, is what I should say. It's not that I know of, but I would imagine it's because, and you know, when I asked my partner, like, oh, you know, and he said, you make it so difficult to cheat on you. Even if I wanted to, it's so difficult because you kind of predict all the problems and do all of these things. I'm so wary of it, which is a really bad way to live, by the way. It's not a healthy way to live, but that I almost kind of make it like it's not even worth the trouble, because if you were to do it, she'll know within a minute and she'll make a big deal. I haven't been cheated on, but I have an intense fear of abandonment. But so cheating for some reason is my biggest fear, even though I've never experienced it. And from working with couples, you can cope with it. No one dies from a partner that cheats. Personally, I just find it a really difficult situation. Have you ever been cheated on?
Not that I know of. And well, but back when I was in my teen years, so yes, I guess I have been cheated on technically. But as far as I know, he didn't sleep with anyone. That was his thing. It was just a snog, a club for snogging for all the Americans is basically a French kiss. So he was going clubbing with his mates, and I'm just like, oh, well, he says he loves, going back to literally where we started, he said that he loved me. He says that, you know, I'm his forever girl. And so of course he's not going to cheat on me. And then when I found out, it was a store, it was sobbing, he was crying, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. And I was so insecure. That was going back to, like, I was so insecure because he was my first boyfriend. I was bullied for my looks as a kid. He used to tell me no one's ever going to love you as much as I love you. And I believed him. Like, I had such low self-esteem. And so that's why I really wanted to talk to you specifically about this subject, because I somewhat knows how it feels when you can have your heart broken and you can trust somebody and they can actually, you know, really use that to your point. And I want to make sure that people hear at home what you mean. It's not that you are dumb. It's that they think of you as being dumb enough to then fall for it again.
What it is.
And I eventually had to build my self-esteem. I had to build my confidence. And then I had to set boundaries to be like, no, this shit ain't gonna fly anymore, homie. Like, it's just not gonna fly. And it was once I did that I actually was like, why the hell am I with this doofus? Like, and that's when I ended up leaving.
Did it cause any trust issues when you first met Tom, or did you manage to park that up? Amazing.
Yeah, I think because I'd already built my self-esteem, I built my confidence, that when I met Tom, I was like, so I'm not gonna take this, I'm not gonna take this, I'm not gonna take this, you know, like, this is who I am. And I did it with, I think, confidence. Now, I've been together with Tom for 23 years, and it has been a stacking stone of building the trust over the years. Because I was worried about, like, you know, what if he takes my heart and breaks it? But I realized, like, I sat there and had almost like one of those moments where I was like, okay, you can choose this path, you can choose this path. One path was you can go in this relationship and always have, like, you know, the red flags up and they're like your eye, like, you know, like detecting, or I can just give myself over. And again, as an adult, I didn't have heartbreak, so I understand why that also may be different. But I just chose to give myself over to Tom.
But you also chose wisely in your partner selection.
Oh, yeah. Talk to me about that, actually.
Because the thing is, as much as you can trust and so on and so forth, when you choose wisely, that really helps let go. For me, that's really worked. When you find somebody, when you choose wisely, the battle is halfway won. Like, a lot of the times what women want to do is they come to me and they're just like, I just want to work on myself because I keep getting anxious about my partner and so on and so forth. But when you look at the partner, they've got very good reasons to be anxious. He comes home late all the time. He doesn't check in. He doesn't really show her concern, and they want to fix themselves. But when you choose correctly, what will happen is you don't need to kind of fix yourself. The relationship is relatively smooth. You'll have ups and downs, but you'll have both of you will want to make the relationship work, and both of you have that joint effort to want to make each other happy. But when you pick badly, it's like you're kind of holding on for dear life with this person, begging them to behave, but they're not going to, unfortunately. So have a look at your selection process. And you chose great with Tom. Like I was telling Lisa before I started, every interview I've ever watched with Tom, he genuinely shows so much admiration and love for his wife in every opportunity he gets to praise his wife. And it's so genuine and so sincere that with somebody like that, how would you get trust issues? To the world. He's not just saying it closed to you to please you. It's just how his mind thinks. His mind's in a constant state of positive admiration for his wife. How amazing is that?
Thank you. I do also think that I love that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it makes me feel very good. But I do think it is because I gave him non-negotiables when we first met.
Yeah.
I said, so I actually want to talk about forgiveness because I said to him, I have zero judgment on women that forgive guys.
Yeah.
Like zero judgment. You need to live the life that you want.
Yeah.
And so if your partner has betrayed you, had an affair or whatever, and you choose to go back, that is your decision to make. No one should freaking judge you for it.
Yeah.
I'm just not that woman.
Right.
And I knew that from
like
the
this
get-go.
as well.
And
What makes you like that?
I know people very close to me who've been devastated by being cheated on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't ever, like as a kid, I just remember seeing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And so it was my thing. And so I just let him know, hey, look, I'm not that person that will take you back. Just like, I love you, but you need to know if I find out on a Monday at 10 a.m. that you've cheated on me, at 10:01, I'm packing my bags. I'm literally not hearing you out.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear why. I don't want to hear, because I'm giving myself over to you. Going back to what I said, when you can give yourself over to someone and I'm like, I'm trusting you 1,000%. I'm trusting you with my vulnerabilities. I'm trusting you with my secrets. I'm trusting you with my insecurities. And in order for me to do that, you need to know these are my non-negotiables. And so by 10:01, I'm packing my bags. 10:02, I'm out the freaking door.
Right.
You'll never see or hear from me again. Period. So I was very clear.
Amazing.
I was very clear.
You know, I would say it's probably because you give your all to your husband.
Yeah.
When the women that forgive, in my experience, tend to be ones that recognize they didn't give their all. They recognize that throughout the relationship, they took their foot off the pedal. They probably weren't really checking in if he's good or not good. They weren't seeing him very regularly. Sometimes they might go a long time without seeing each other. They weren't prioritizing even their own health. They weren't really looking after themselves in any way, shape, or form, didn't want sex. So those women, when they come to me about the affair, they're actually coming with a bit of curiosity. That curiosity leads to forgiveness. They're coming with, instead of complete anger, they've turned that into, I understand, I wasn't really there for him. How do I now fix this? How do I also help fix this? Now, the women that have given it their all, 100%, they've done everything for that man. They haven't left any stone unturned. They're less forgiving. They're like, I've given you my all. I've never strayed on you. I've never even thought about another man. And I've given you everything. If that's not good enough, bye. But the ones that know that, unfortunately, they got a little bit too complacent, they're the ones that are slightly more willing to forgive. And I always say that only forgive if you're not going to use the remainder of the relationship to punish him. If you're going to forgive and then be angry, furious, bring it up, swear at him, if you're going to do all of that, just leave. It's just easier. But if you're going to forgive, but then you start a new relationship with each other and try your best to show up again as you did in the beginning, then give it another try.
All right, so I'm going to be the voice of someone in my audience right now saying, but I really did give it my all. Yeah. Like, Sadia, I gave it my all, and he still freaking cheated on me. And I went back to him. What? My mind goes to, and again, this could be complete naivety on my part, but just thinking back of me going back to my boyfriend over and over and over again, it was the insecurity that I had in myself. Because he was saying to me, like manipulating me, saying no one's ever going to love you like I did, I'd really believed him. Yeah. And I started to think, oh my God. Like, because then when he was sorry, it was lavish, right? Yeah. It was like, I love you. I'll do anything. Like, I'll come pick you up. I'll buy you flowers. Like, it was so over the top that in that moment of, it wasn't necessarily the cheating, but in that moment of like, he screamed at me or he called me a name and now he's really sorry, because I had the insecurity of, but what if someone doesn't love me as much as he does? I kept going back to him. Do you think that that's a possibility as well?
Absolutely. Well, I would say in that case where you have given it all, and it does happen because some men are just that way inclined, and you've given it your all and he still does it to you and he still abuses you or whatever it is. What I say to women in that case, you just have to pick your suffering. If you're going to stay with this man, you're going to suffer in the form of knowing he might do it again, not appreciate what you've done for him and humiliate you and hurt you again. That's a form of suffering. If you become single, you might not meet somebody, you might not, you might be lonely. That's another form of suffering. You have to pick the suffering that has the best outcome for you. Personally, I would say being lonely for a little while, hurt, a bit depressed, and then the potential outcome of meeting someone healthy for you or raising your own self-esteem is a better long-term outcome. I would pick that suffering if you can. But if you prefer the suffering of staying in a relationship with somebody that might cheat again and again, might hurt you, but at least you know what you're doing every day, and at least you've got the comfort and consistency of this is my man, then pick that suffering. Don't focus on what you like, focus on what you can take. And if you can take it, carry on. But if you can't, just trust that suffering will have a positive outcome if you have to start again.
Ooh, that was so fire, girl. Okay, so you said don't hold it against them then. You can't hold on to it and punish them. I think that's super important. How do you actually then come back from that?
What you have to do in that moment is try and understand, like you're almost starting from scratch, and even try and understand what was he seeking from that affair? What was it that he was seeking? Now, sometimes some men are just seeking to be desired again by a pretty young girl. They just want to feel like they get an ego boost. Now, the reality is it's hard to recreate that feeling in your relationship. I'm never going to be a 19-year-old Swedish model, so I can't do that for you. So that's going to be a difficult one, and that's a low self-esteem and an ego issue in him. So he has to resolve that within himself. But if it's a case of he was seeking a lot of more conversation, he was seeking quality time, he was seeking somebody that would make him feel seen again because he hasn't felt that in a while, then you can regain that. But then she'll also have needs. I need somebody who makes me feel desired again, and I need somebody who makes me feel seen and somebody who cares about my well-being. So you both negotiate a new contract. But if the desire or the need he was seeking outside of the relationship is one that you can't build in yours, there's no point. You can't build the trust again, unfortunately.
Oh God, that's so strong. I've heard you say that everyone basically has a potential of cheating.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Unfortunately, well, the thing is, I've never been a cheat. But the reason why I say that is because I try not to put any bad behavior aside from myself as well. It's not my nature to, but who knows? I've never been in a situation where I've got 5 kids with somebody, I can't physically leave them, so but I'm not happy and I feel unwanted, but then somebody else makes me feel loved. I've never been in those circumstances. So it's really easy to say, I would never do that, I would never do this. But reality is you haven't been tested. If you feel like you would never do something, it's because you haven't had those testing conditions yet. Give it time. Anybody can do anything given the right or wrong conditions. So what I would say is everybody has the potential. What prevents you is creating the right conditions that doesn't push that behavior. Do you think you ever would have the ability to cheat or anything?
No, until I heard you say that, and I was like, do I?
Yeah, I don't have it naturally. It doesn't come naturally to me.
No.
So if I did, it would have to be extreme circumstances. But I can understand in somebody's extreme circumstances. Personally, I try not to be in extreme circumstances.
But I really do think through that, because it was like really interesting when I heard you say, and I actually have a quote of yours, you said your moral compass is dependent on your conditions.
It is, yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's really strong. So I started to think, okay, I know my moral compass. And I was like, but even in my conditions at the worst, so that scenario that you just said, right? I would say I'm now disconnected from my husband. I would rather leave him and deal with that and then find somebody than ever be the person that would be the person that broke someone else's heart.
Yeah, me too. I'm personally a lot of that because I have no fear of being alone. But I also, I happen to be an educated woman who has the ability to make my own money. If I was somebody who wasn't that and didn't have the ability to make my own money and had to start again and didn't have family around me and had all these kids, but then I don't know what I would do. So it's really like incumbent on your conditions. So that's why I try not to judge everybody, but I would tell everybody, if you can, avoid the art of cheating because it creates such an inauthentic. You start to dislike yourself. You start to dislike the person you become because you either have to be somebody else to please the person you're having an affair with or somebody else to avoid being caught in the house. Either way, you're not being yourself. Yeah. Either way, you're losing touch with you and you start to feel emotionally exhausted. So I would recommend always, if you can avoid it, always avoid it.
Well, speaking of not feeling yourself, I've seen certain women that I'm just like, she's such a badass, she's really strong, and then jealousy comes and it literally makes them a different human. So talk to me about jealousy jealousy.
Yeah.
You've obviously said that you're insecure.
Yeah.
So how do you handle it? I assume that leads to jealousy?
Yeah, do you know what? One thing I would say is my jealousy, I have zero jealousy outside of a relationship. So I'm so happy for people. I'm so excited, and especially with other women, I'm never jealous. But when it comes to a relationship, because I put so much emotional effort into it, I get jealous. I get jealous very quickly and easily. I've gotten a lot better. But I remember back in the day, I would get jealous particularly about somebody's past. I would have retroactive jealousy, where I would think about somebody's ex and constantly compare myself to the ex, constantly wonder what their connection was like, constantly wonder what it was, why did they break up, are they going to get back together? And the reason I had that is because usually the partner didn't give me any current reasons to be jealous. But because of my own insecurity, I wanted to find a cause for that insecurity. It's too painful to accept that, Sadia, you just have a problem and you haven't worked through your issues. It's easier to say, oh, he's still in love with his ex. So what I would do is create a reason to be jealous. And if I couldn't find it in something that's going on present, I would find it in the past. So if you do suffer from that, it might be an internal issue that you need to work on, because that is quite a common thing, like thinking and comparing yourself to exes. And it's usually when there's not a current problem.
Oh, so this is fascinating. Take me through that then. So Sadia starts dating a guy.
Yeah.
You said you've worked through it now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So take me back to the old Sadia.
Old Sadia.
So you've met a guy, you
Yeah.
really like him, you seem like a very confident woman. I know you said that you've got insecurities, which I completely understand that we most all have, even if we appear confident. So you start to research his ex.
Yeah.
And you see photos online, I assume, on Instagram. How do you then work through it? Or how would you work through it now in hindsight to address that, hey, this is a jealousy move. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve your relationship. So that doesn't become a crippling factor in your relationship.
What I would say is you have a core belief in you that is limiting you. What it might be is that you might be thinking, I have to be beautiful to attract this man, or I have to be very nurturing to attract this man. I have to be something to attract this man. And then when you realize that that's exhausting, you find excuse like his ex and think, well, is she more beautiful, or is she more this, is she more that? Just to kind of like reinforce that core belief that love is conditional. So what you have to do is remove the idea of comparing yourself to other people by recognizing that even if that person is more beautiful, less beautiful, they're not you. So you don't have to be so jealous. Just like I might like sugar, I might really love sugar. Or there might be 2 pieces of cake, but the overall ingredients of a red velvet cake is what makes me like that cake more than a fudge cake. Similarly, you might be beautiful, intelligent, all these things, but if you're comparing yourself to another person on just one attribute, you're always going to feel insecure. But if you recognize that there's a plethora of ingredients that make you you, and you yourself is unique and irreplaceable, you'll be less likely to compare yourself with other people. But if you think you only have one quality to offer a man, every woman is your competition. But if you recognize that everything you work on, all your attributes is what makes you desirable, you'll realize that there's no competition because there's no you. So I always say try and work on other attributes of yourself that would make you less insecure if you can.
Oh, I love that, because when I think about, for me with Tom, it was very much, of course there's always women more beautiful. Like there's 7.5 billion people in the world at this point. And it's like, for me to think that I'm always going to be the most attractive, or he's only going to think I'm the only woman that's attractive, like it just isn't realistic. So I always, again, going back to like, I know I'm beating a dead horse, but this is so important to say, like I just deal with the world the way it is, not the way that I wish it was. And so I go, okay, if the world is that, of course there's going to be women that are beautiful. I'm 44 years old. So like, of course there's going to be more women that are going to be younger, hotter, fitter, bigger boobs, like bigger butt, all of the things. I would just, my self-esteem would just plummet. Like I just would have zero confidence. So I go, okay, to your point, what are the other things that I have to offer? And then how do I keep showing up? Because I'm just going to be honest, and I tell myself this, insecurities isn't sexy.
It really is.
Confidence is freaking sexy. And so I remind myself that in the moments of insecurity, I go, hey, Lisa, are you... Right now, if you're trying to be like appealing, you're not, because you're insecure. And then it really does come to, I built my own self-esteem off my own back. Without Tom, without him around, without my business, without money, without success, I just built my confidence. And so what does that mean? How do I just show up every day, knowing that I could fail, knowing that I could have, acne, knowing that my hair can fall out. Like I had over a year where I was very, I had massive gut issues. So my hair was falling out, my nails were brittle, and I felt terrible about myself. So in that assessment of, I don't feel sexy, I feel super insecure in those moments, I was like, oh, it's your hormones. Work on your health, work on your hormones. Be the person that got up today and looked at my blood levels, or be the person, right? So I started to build my confidence in being the person that told myself I was going to do something and then follow through. That was one piece. So it becomes these little notches of confidence that I would do.
Well, you became a problem solver.
Yes.
That's what confidence is essentially you take all the problems in your life, and instead of seeking ways to numb yourself or go into denial or just seeking highs, you problem solve. And then if some things can't be solved, you accept the outcome. That's what I mean by that is I might problem solve, let's say I don't like my weight. Instead of going into denial or worrying about it or just seeking quick, fixes, I learn how to manage my weight. I problem solve that situation. Now, if some problems are beyond me, I just accept some problems are beyond me, and I just accept the outcome of that problem not being solved. But what creates lack of confidence is you have a bunch of problems, but you have no way of resolving them, and you don't exercise any self-control or any methodology to resolve those problems. So you become overwhelmed. And in that moment of overwhelmness, you seek your partner to make you feel confident again, when really it has to come from your own problem-solving ability. So if you're ever struggling with your weight, with your health, with your appearance, with your income, whatever it is, with your friendships, until you problem solve them, you're always going to lack confidence.
Wow, I've never actually thought of it like that.
I love it. You problem solved everything.
I love that. Look, I'm by far not perfect. Like, I do not want everyone to think that I show up every day utterly confident. I don't. But what I do is I know what it feels like to be confident. And so, like, even my jewelry, it's my way of suiting up to build my confidence. And then it becomes when you work on yourself, it is a reflection of then how you show up in that relationship. So going back to the...
Hi guys. Now, one of the questions I get asked the most since I've been online is, what books do I recommend? Is there any books that I can read to help me understand like some of the things you talk about? What self-help books did you read to get here? Now, a fun fact about me is I suffer from very extreme ADHD. I am very much incapable of reading an entire book. I haven't read a book cover to cover since maybe I was 15 years old. Unless it's for work, unless it's an academic reason that I need to read, I won't read. And but I really realized I'm missing out, right? Because there's so many amazing self-help books out there. There's so many great books for relationships. There's just so much information out there that you can't really capture without reading a book. And so I started looking online, and I found this incredible website called Shortform. And what Shortform does is takes all of your best-selling books from any genre, whether it is from like self-help, autobiographies, all types of topics, and it simply condenses it for you. So you can read an entire book or understand the entire gist of the book within 10 minutes or so. And I literally go on there, I download a few of the best books on there, and I read them while I'm on the plane, or I'll know when to save them, and I might skim over some of the really important details before I go onto a podcast. So for me, it's been a real time saver. It's been a real lifesaver because I've learned so much on it. And I really, really highly recommend that you go to www.shortform.com.